So our next category, what I'm calling underperformers. So these are where teams where their records on the field, their wins and losses, are underperforming their recruiting rankings. And so there's three of them here. There's USC, Nebraska, and Maryland. So it's in light tan here. So we're going to cover USC first because they're the highest rated one. Their 5-year Big Ten average recruiting rank is 6.2. So that's good for the 5th best in the Big Ten. From a national perspective, their average rank over the last 5 years is 23. However, their 5-year win percentage is only 60%. So think about that. Their USC is recruiting like a top 25 program, but they're only winning 6 of 10 football games. That's a big disconnect, right? And we know, for USC under Lincoln Riley, the biggest culprit, I guess I would say, is the lack of enough talent or success on defense. But that's why everyone's really kind of shocked, given his pedigree and given the still solid recruiting by USC. It is surprising that they haven't done better. They've finished in the top 5, 7 of the last 10 years in the Big Ten. They have had a couple clunkers, though. So under Clay Helton in 2020, they finished 16th. And then 2 years later in 2022, finished 17th. So 2 bad classes out of 3 years really hurts you. And I think you do see that in USC's play. They got some really good players, but they don't have the depth you need to go against the big guys in the Big Ten. So they really need to address that. Nationally, USC has finished 8 of 10 years in the top 20, so that's great. But again, a couple bad years from the Clay Helton. Riley's last 3 classes. So go to the national table, JR. His last 3 classes have ranked nationally in row 5. They're 8, 17, and 14. That's top 20. It's good, but let's face it, with Lincoln Riley, that's pretty underwhelming, don't you think? USC, we talked about it's in a big city, NIL opportunities. I mean, he's really under-recruited so far, and that's kind of a disappointment. I know they've made recent changes to their admin staff focused on recruiting, and I think in some recruiting services, their 2026 class is off to a great start, and some have them number 1 so far. Now it's early, but I do think going forward, you're going to see USC with better recruiting classes, but clearly they've underperformed on the field versus their recruiting. Let's talk about the next one, Nebraska. So they're our second underperformer. They rank 6th best in the Big Ten. Their 5-year average is 7.4. Their national average is 25. So over the last 5 years. So they've been recruiting at about the top 25 level, right? But look at their winning percentage, 39% for the 6th best recruiting team in the Big Ten. That is horrible. And really, the lack of player development, and frankly, that figure of 39% is driven by Scott Frost and his abysmal record in 1-score games. So he's 5-22, Scott Frost was, in 1-score games, despite having consistently good, solid recruiting classes, right? That were ranked 20, 17. I mean, really solid stuff. So under Matt Rule, you're seeing, and let's go to the national one slide, JR, for Nebraska. It was national. Yeah, 18th and 22nd. So really solid there by Matt Rule. I do expect them to improve here. But the bottom line is, with the recruiting that Nebraska is able to maintain, there's no reason they shouldn't be winning at more like a 66% rate. They should be like having 8-4 seasons consistently, maybe going 9-3, maybe a 10-2 with a experienced quarterback like Dylan Raiola by the time he gets to his junior year. But really, they've been the biggest underperformers of all the Big Ten schools here. The third one we're going to go back to the Big Ten rankings here, is Maryland. And JR's favorite, Mike Loxley. So they're 7th in the Big Ten in recruiting with a 5-year average of 8.4. Nationally, their 5-year average is 29.6, so about, top 30 level recruiting, but their winning percentage has only been 52% over the last 5 years. So again, to me, that says they are not playing on the field to their recruiting level. And if you think about it, that really supports the perception of Locksley and his staff, right? They can recruit well, but they really do not develop the talent sufficiently. They don't retain the talent. And certainly in game planning and coaching, that's where they fail. And they're also in a region where, Northern Virginia, Baltimore, Washington, ripe with a lot of really good high school football. So I think now that they're no longer in the Big Ten East, we're going to find out here in the next year or two if Locksley's going to make it or not, because there's really no excuses now that they're out of the Big Ten East. So that was Maryland. So those were my three underperformers. JR, any comments on them?
No, I think you got him right. I do think USC has fixed some things. Chad Bowden coming in from Notre Dame, and they also got the general manager from Wisconsin. I mean, obviously they're, like you said, they're number one in recruiting in some different sites and stuff like that right now. So obviously they're doing something right there. My biggest thing with USC is just kind of like wait and see. Let's see if they can hold on to these recruits, because this has happened. Not quite to this level, but this has happened with USC before, where they've gotten really good recruits and then they have left, for Georgia or whatever else, because USC seems to be one of these programs that, is aggressive with the NIL early, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when you're aggressive with the NIL early, there are opportunities for other teams to kind of swoop in late and you take your recruits away from you. So to me, bringing in Chad Bowden, the general manager from Wisconsin, I think that's going to help them, actually be able to do better during the season. Lincoln Riley seems to be able to recruit very well outside of the season, but as we've documented on this show before, he calls plays. He's basically the offensive coordinator. He's the head coach. Just got too much going on. So the general manager hires, I really like them by USC. Can they hold on to some of these top tier players that they have committed right now? I would venture to say yes. I think USC is going to be a top 10 recruiting class at the very least, probably maybe even top 5 this season, but we'll see where they get to there. And then you're spot on about Nebraska. The Scott Frost age just absolutely destroyed their winning percentage. The 3 years prior to these last two, the recruiting has been more consistent under Matt Rule, which I think is better. But he's also supplementing with the transfer portal at the same time, so I don't think he is going full fledged into recruiting as maybe he will in 3 or 4 years from now if they can get to that level. I think Dylan Raiola was a huge get for them. That really helped kind of solidify their program. And it was really not the only reason, but one of the big reasons why they were making why they were able to make a push for David Sanders. And then, I don't know. I mean, I've given my thoughts on Maryland recruiting so many times at this point.
Yeah.
Mike, you hit the nail on the head, Jeff. Mike Locksley can recruit. He does a good job getting players in there. In fact, he'll send players to the NFL, but for whatever reason, he just can't put it all together. It was really disappointing to me. The first year out of the Big Ten East, what do? They win one Big Ten game, and it was the one game where USC came to Maryland and they had to play them at Maryland. They had a huge advantage there. They took down a USC team that was struggling this season in close games, and they won. So good for Maryland on that, but I would have liked to see more from them their first year out of the Big Ten East. Maybe we'll see more from them this season. If they do, great. But so far, it's not looking good.
Very good. Should I jump into the next section?
Couple comments by a few people. We got Trojan Fight here. Hello, Trojan Fight. He said we had some NIL struggles until recently. Yeah, and I mean sometimes it's just figuring out the NIL too, right? How to use
For
it and how
sure.
to have it the right way. So you can get NIL, but use it the right way. I think Chad Bowden's going to be huge for them on that. Mike says Locksley can't even pay to keep his QB. Locksley isn't a great coach, but I don't have any idea who can win at Maryland when you can't afford to pay and retain your best players. That's another piece of it too. They have lost some of their really good recruits to Penn State and some other schools, and so if you can recruit really well, that's good for you. But if you lose Chop Robinson to Penn State or whatever, like other recruits, it doesn't do a whole lot of good for you to pay them and come to your school if they're just going to leave after a year or two. So Mike Loxley's got to find a way to hold on to his guys. So good point there, Mike.